I don't think so.
You get paid the medium bucks, man. It's good for something.
No, I do want to try one of those things. They do look fun. I've seen them around here.
Yeah, it's my dad's pitch.
Oh,
It's all local.
Yeah, it looks like it's the river trail or something.
It is.
it's crazy how off-road, you could go.
Yeah, it goes over rocks.
You know, 30 years ago when I first rode that trail, there were still trees laying across it. And so if you rode that trail in low light, you were taking your life in your own hands.
That's adventure, isn't it?
It's adventurous when you fly over the handlebars of your bike.
My neighbors have been egging me on to go out there and like ride my mountain bike. I was like, I can't wait till 10. I'm just gonna go first thing in the
Pretty irritating.
Yeah.
Okay. You're on TV.
All right, then I will kick things off. Good evening. This is Chairman Nathan Clark kicking off the October 1st Board of Zoning Appeals. At this time, I'm going to invite Kyle to guide us through the new virtual protocol.
Thank you very much. My name is Kyle Kobe, and I'll be facilitating the Zoom video portion of the meeting. Joining via remote video is Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. We will work alongside the chair, who is also on remote video, to facilitate the meeting proceedings. Currently, I have everyone muted so we can talk through the general ground rules for tonight's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand corner of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you're muted, a red line will appear over the icon. This will make it easier for everyone to hear the meeting. Just remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In the menu, you can also turn your camera on or off by clicking the video icon located next to the microphone icon. For the purposes of this public meeting, please keep your video on for the duration. If you are participating by phone, you can enter *6 to mute and unmute your phone. Somewhere on your Zoom screen, you will also see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles all of the meeting participants. Be aware that we will not be screen sharing as a part of the meeting this evening. All attachments, reference materials, and submissions from the public are included in the agenda packet. A few reminders to ensure that the provisions of the Kansas Open Meetings Act are met. Board members, you must state your name and title each time you speak. Members of city staff must also state their name and title each time they speak. I'll also ask that applicants and members of the public identify themselves each time before they speak to ensure that everyone is able to follow along. Individuals who signed up in advance to provide public comments remotely will be called upon by name. When you are called on, please unmute your listening device and state your name before speaking. The chair will then call for in-person public comment for those who are physically present. Staff will direct you to the podium to speak while following social distancing and safety protocols. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, staff will call on each board member individually to provide their vote. Staff will then announce whether the motion carried and the count of the vote. I want to again remind everyone to please keep yourself muted when you are not speaking, and I'll now turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Thank you, Kyle. This is Chairman Clark. At this time, we will move on to agenda item A, which is a roll call to determine if we have a quorum this evening.
Good evening, board members. Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. I'll go ahead and call roll. Clark.
Present.
Falvey.
Present.
Gardner.
Here.
Herod.
Here.
Shalinski.
I'm here.
And Wesner.
Here.
We do have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is Chairman Clark. Moving on to agenda item B, communications. Do we have any communications to come before the board this evening?
I believe we did have one communication, but it was, I believe, forwarded or updated to the packets. It was one item, the first item on the agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Clark. Do we have any ex parte or abstentions for agenda items tonight? Seeing none, move on to any agenda items that might be deferred this evening.
Do not have any deferrals this evening.
Thank you. All right, Chairman Clark, moving on to agenda item C, the minutes. We have two approvals, or two agendas, minutes to approve. We have one from August 6th as well as September 3rd. Staff, would you please, I guess, take a vote to approve each one of those? Or do we make those motions?
You'll make the motion and then I'll
Yeah.
report.
So, my
okay.
apologies.
No problem.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Gardner, Board Member Gardner, motion to approve both minutes, if I can do it that way.
You may do that, yes.
Eric Weisner, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please take vote on that?
Yep, Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Herod,
Aye.
Shalinski,
Aye.
Weisner.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chairman Clark then kicking into section D, the public hearing. At this time, we would like to hear from staff on agenda item 1, a request for a variance in the rear setback at 1921 Quail Run.
Good evening, board members. Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. I'm going to present the first item on your agenda. It is again located at 1921 Quail Run. This is a request from the rear yard setback as required in the RM12 zoning district. The required rear setback is 20 feet, and the variance request is to move the minimum down to 0 feet. So in evaluating request for variance, we have the 5 criteria. First on the a list would be for the uniqueness to the specific property in question, as it is not created by the actions of the property owner. So brief history on this particular parcel. Prior to 1984, the property was platted as part of the Albemarle Country Club. In 1984, the property was replatted as Albemarle Country Club Number 2, which relocated the west property line for the entire condominium development, including the parcel. Throughout 1985, the condominiums were constructed. 1921 Quail Run, which is part of Building 4, is located at the southernmost end of this particular development and was also constructed during 1985. The CAMA records at the county indicate that that deck that's attached to the structure was also built at the same time the structure was constructed in 1985. In 1986, there was a plat of survey that was filed for this particular property, which shows the existing location of the structure, the deck, stairs, and patio located at 1921 Quail Run as part of Building 4. And in relation to those property lines, this particular plat of survey recognized the location of the development on the parcel and the encroachment of, into the golf course property. And as part of that plat of survey in 1986, an access agreement was also filed as part of that plat that granted access to the portion of the golf course where that particular development encroached. And that easement grants permanent and exclusive access to the use of the property owners of 1921 Quail Run. So as the history indicates, there is some unique circumstances related to this particular parcel, and those circumstances are created by platting and the construction at the time of development for this particular property location. So staff is of the opinion that item number 1, that even though the action of the property owner to reconfigure the deck slightly for safety reasons, the uniqueness of the property creates the uniqueness created by the platting of the property and the development at the time of construction creates a uniqueness that is not the action of the property owner. Criteria number 2, staff is of the opinion after reviewing that this does not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners. This particular variance request and the construction and rehabilitation of the deck is solely located on this particular parcel. It does not bleed into adjacent property owners. So it is staff's opinion that is not adversely affecting the rights of adjacent property owners. Criteria 3, the strict application of the code constitutes an unnecessary hardship. Staff is of the opinion that this could in fact constitute an unnecessary hardship. This is the only property within this development that is unable to meet any rear setback. All of the other units have been developed with enough setback area to accommodate similar sized decks. All of the condominiums in the duplex are developed with facing view towards the golf course. And all of the units, except for this one, would be able to utilize that exterior space adjacent to the golf course. So staff is of the opinion that because of the platting and the location of the structure when it was developed in 1985 does create a unique circumstance that creates an unnecessary hardship were this property owner required to meet that 20-foot setback. Criteria 4, that this will not adversely affect public safety, morals, convenience. Staff is of the opinion again that this particular request is solely for the safety and use of the deck on the property and does not have any adverse effect to adjacent property owners, the community at large, as far as safety, welfare, morals, and convenience impact that community. Criteria 5, that this would not, this is not opposed to the general spirit and intent of the code. Staff is of the opinion that variance requests are geared to alleviate unnecessary hardships, and this, after analysis, staff has come to the opinion that this is a particular case where this is what the variance is intended to do. It does not go against the intent of the code. In this case, this unique and unnecessary hardship is what the variance process is meant to do, which is to equalize the use of property as it would be used in any other similar zoning district or throughout the development. So staff is of the opinion that this item does meet the 5 criteria outlined in consideration for variance approval, and staff is recommending approval of the setback variance to reduce it from 20 feet down to 0 feet. And I would be happy to stand for any questions if you have any.
This is Chairman Clark, thanking staff for their report. I always enjoy the fun history. Does anyone have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, seeing none, we would like to hear from the applicant if they are present this evening.
C.L. Mauer is here with Lampland Engineering, along with Mike Flory and his wife, Cheryl, sorry. And we're here, to answer any questions. Basically what it was is a reconstruction of existing deck. And it ended up going to be smaller than what the other one that was there. And unbeknownst to us, really, that there was some violations that went on. That's what we ended up with here with variances. I would be more concerned about a variance if we were across this property line and we had houses on the other side, but we don't. We have a golf course. So it's not like we're interfering with anybody else's backyards on this. So, and staff did a great job. We're here to answer any other questions you have for us. The patio is not moving, so it'll be there anyway. The deck is what we're really talking about. So I'm open to any questions from you guys.
This is Board Member Shalinski. My question goes to the original circumstance. I'm just curious to know who was the developer that did this, if you know.
Mike Flory here. That was Gene Frizzle.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Do we have any other questions for the applicant at this time? Seeing none, I am going to open up the public portion of this evening's agenda item. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to share on this agenda item?
Board Member Gardner, motion to close the public portion.
Eric Weisner, second.
Chair Clark, we have a motion and a second to close the public portion. Staff, could you please take roll and vote on that?
Yes, Staff Liaison Catherine Week, Clark,
Aye.
Alvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Shalinski,
Aye.
and Weisner.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Chairman Clark, thank you. At this time, board, would you like to discuss? Does anyone have any thoughts on this?
Board Member Gardner, completely support it. I think the staff did a good job, and the applicant noted that as well. The only thing I would add was in the thing the HOA also approved, and the public comment was also supportive. So I'd move that we grant the variance to reduce the required rear setback from 20 feet to 0 feet for the proposed reconstruction of an existing deck located at 1921 Quail Run, based on the staff's findings in their report that concluded it meets the 5 conditions outlined in section 201309G1.
Thank you. This is Chairman Clark. We have a motion.
Eric Weisner, second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please take vote on that for us tonight?
Yes, Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Zelinski,
Aye.
and Wampler. Oh, I'm sorry, Weisner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much. This is Chairman Clark. To the applicant, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes, Mike Flory, and on behalf of my wife and myself, we would like to thank Caitlin and her staff for the fine work that she's done. We'd like to thank all of the board members also for your time to review this and for your approval. So thank you.
Enjoy your new deck. All right, this is Chairman Clark. We'll move on to agenda item 2 for the evening. This is a request for a variance in the spillover light at 4701 Bower Farm Drive. At this point, we would like to hear from staff.
Good evening.
Luke Mortensen, planner. As Mr. Clark just noted, item number 2 tonight is a request for a variance from the outdoor lighting standards for a proposed financial institution use to be located at 4701 Bower Farm Drive. The applicant is seeking a variance from section 20-1103 of the code, which expresses standards related to the amount of spillover light allowed at the property line of a lot adjacent to another non-residentially zoned property. The applicant is seeking to increase the maximum amount of spillover light from the code standard of 3-foot candles to 4.1-foot candles at the property line. This request is for the western property line of the subject property, which is about 230 feet between Bower Farm Drive and West 6th Street. The applicant is currently working with Planning and Development Services staff on building, sign, and electrical permits as well. The first criteria focuses on uniqueness based in plating or zoning, as well as the conditions if they were created by the applicant or not. Staff has concluded that the physical conditions of the site are not unique and can be found in the same zone and district. The subject property is zoned PCD, that's Planned Commercial Development District, and was platted fairly recently in 2008. There are many land uses in this zoning district and other non-residential zoning districts that have compliant photometric plans, including other financial institution uses. Additionally, the land use of an adjacent property is not a unique condition considered by the board. Staff believes the proposed variance from the spillover light restrictions would not adversely affect the rights of the adjacent property owners or residents. Excess spillover light will not restrict the adjacent property owner from continuing to operate a code compliant use, which in this case is a fast order food drive-in use. Additionally, the surrounding properties are non-residentially zoned. There are no adjacent residential dwelling units that would be adversely affected by the spillover light. On to criteria 3, unnecessary hardships. Staff does not believe that requiring the applicant to conform to the Land Development Code's lighting standards constitutes an unnecessary hardship. Staff was unable to find the Kansas state statute that expresses lighting standards for financial institutions and ATMs. However, we did determine that a 2-foot candle requirement within an area of 50 unobstructed feet appears to be a common standard across the country for this type of use. This requirement can be met within the existing Land Development Code. The code restricts light at the property line to 3-foot candles, which is 1-foot candle higher than what the applicant has noted is required by the state. Staff believes granting the spillover light variance may adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare. The site was originally developed with an approved photometric plan in 2008. Allowing more spillover light onto adjacent properties is counterproductive to both that photometric plan and the community's goal of eliminating light glare and spillover on nearby land uses. The intent of the code concerning outdoor lighting is to eliminate spillover light and light glare. The code allows applicants to light their properties at any level they desire. It just needs to diffuse properly to a maximum of 3-foot candles at the property line. Additionally, it's not the intent of the code to grant a variance in a situation where the applicant could meet the state standard of 2-foot candles and still comply with the land development code standard of 3-foot candles. To conclude, staff's analysis of the applicant's request to increase the amount of spillover light finds that the request does not satisfy the 5 conditions set forth in 20-1309 of the code. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the variance to exceed the maximum amount of spillover light over the lot line of a non-residentially zoned property for the western property line of 4701 Bower Farm Drive. I, as always, can stand for questions, and I believe Kyle has the applicant in, the applicant is with us tonight, right, Kyle?
I'll go with planning. I believe so, yes.
Okay.
This is Chairman Clark. My internet cut out there for a second, so apologies if I missed something, but thank you, staff, for your report. Does anyone have any questions for staff at this time? All right, seeing none, I would like to invite the applicant to share with us this evening.
Hey, yeah, this is Josh Wagner. I work for GMR here in Dallas, Texas. We did the lighting design for this proposed Bank of America. So we do lighting designs for Bank of America and Wells Fargo nationwide. There are a few states that are regulated and non-regulated in Bank of America's eyes. Kansas happens to be one of those regulated states. Regulated states for Bank of America need to be at a 2-foot candle minimum within 50-foot radius of an exposure. An exposure in this case being the lobby and 24-hour access to an ATM. The reason strictly for our lighting to this level is security purposes. We want to light 50 foot in any obstructed direction, just for anybody utilizing the ATM after hours to have full visibility around the ATM, strictly for security purposes. So we are 1-foot candle over the maximum at the property line, and that is strictly because we're lighting the 2-foot candles in that 50-foot radius. It just happens to be very close to the property line. Where we are failing is in a drive-through Taco Bell that's open till 1 a.m. Which is the reason why we're requesting the variance. We very well can meet the 3-foot, but we wouldn't be able to meet the security purposes for the reason for this lighting design, which is the reason we're applying for the variance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any about that.
Can you identify this, Board Member Gardner, can you identify the source of the security lighting standard?
I can find it. Yes, sir. I don't have it with me today, but Bank of America has a specific guideline for not only 50-foot radius, but there's 2-foot candles in a 50-foot radius, 10-foot candles within a 5-foot radius, and any parking within 60 foot also needs to be at a 2-foot candle minimum. And I'd be happy to send you that over. I don't happen to have it right here in front of me, but it is a Bank of America standard all across the United States and specific states.
So is that standard based on ASTM or a national standard, or is it only Bank of America?
IES. Yeah, they're followed after IES standards.
Okay.
Yeah, and in Kansas, the 2-foot candles is really, it's still required as a regulated state, although there is no state legislature as there is in California, Texas, and Florida, for instance, which in the state law says the ATMs have to be at this level. Bank of America considers Kansas as a regulated state. So that's why we tried to meet that 2-foot candle minimum. If we can't meet that 2-foot candle minimum, then we would be able to meet your 3-foot ordinance, 3-foot candle ordinance. property line.
This is Chairman Clark. I'm looking at the application here. For me, it's page 33, full site photometrics plan. And as I understand it, the new light that you're adding is the blue dot right in the middle near the lobby and associate entry. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're actually adding a total of 7 lights. The blue one would be one additional light, one new light, new power source. All the green fixtures or the pole heads are existing poles. Those are poles that are already on site. Specifically, you already have 2 poles right along the property line on the Taco Bell side. So your YA ones, I don't know if you're referencing the plan. I hope that you're looking at the plan while I say this. The YA ones are 2 foot from the property line and they have no backlight control. So currently we're well over the 3-foot candle property line ordinance. So we turned those off for the time being, just for the sake of the lighting design. Because we're lighting for a Bank of America security purposes, we're not utilizing any other fixtures off property. So all the foot candles you see here are strictly from our property. If we were to turn on those YA ones, we'd be well over 3-foot candles, because those are, I checked the pictures, those are 4 to 1,000 watt metal halide with no backlight control on them.
Okay, so I guess my question then is, it seems like for the sake of this evening's discussion, you've been mentioning the 50-foot radius from the entry, which when I look at the page titled ATM Compliance Area Photometrics Plan, it has a radius there. It doesn't explicitly, oh yeah, it does say 50-foot radius. And you need it to be above 2 candle in that half crescent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That
granted, I want to also note, I guess I didn't say this earlier, those foot candles you're seeing at LU8 are taken at 3 foot above grade, which is your natural looking view, as if you're in a car, you're walking. The photometrics we're referencing in the ordinance are taken at grade. So those photometrics don't exactly line up. LU8 is at 3 foot above grade, and LU4 is at grade at 0.
Okay. Chairman Clark again, just curious, it seems like that 50-foot radius is about 10 foot inside the property line?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And so it seems like, are you saying that you're not able to light that radius without spilling over? Because
yeah, in order to meet the minimum 2-foot candles in that 50-foot radius, it would have to take the design you're looking at. We tried different configurations without adding a new pole, which would cost $20,000 to $30,000. This is utilizing everything that's on site without removing any trees. This is the design that would keep us in compliance with the bank and barely missing your ordinance by a shim.
Chairman Clark, what page are you talking about?
I'm looking at the PDF, page 37. In the top right-hand corner says ATM Compliance Area Photometrics Plan. And there's just a crescent shape coming out from that blue dot in the middle of the map.
Okay. And the place that, Board Member Gardner again, the place that it's spilling over is Bower Lane or Bower Farm Drive?
Yeah, Chairman Clark here. You're correct. It's Bower Lane on the right side of the page is the Taco Bell. The north arrow is over on the far right side. We're looking north is down in the orientation I have here.
I'm all messed up because of that.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is an example of where a national safety standard is not permitted because of a lighting standard in Kansas.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
That sounds like a unique problem to me.
This is Chairman Clark, and I don't fully understand that statement. If the standard is to be, I believe, 2-foot candles around the ATM, in my understanding of how lighting works, the further you get away from it, the less light there would be. And so it would seem that at 60 feet away from that ATM, it would be below 2-foot candles, and we would be able to stay well underneath our 3-foot candles.
Yes, your lighting levels are at different heights. Okay, so if we're taking lighting levels at 3 foot, your ordinance is at 0. So what you're looking at in that 50-foot range is well above that lighting. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not saying that correctly. Your lighting levels are going to be much higher than what you think they are than that grade. So at grade, we're wanting to be at 3-foot candles. For us to meet that minimum of 2-foot candles in that 50-foot radius, this is the design, which unfortunately is us at grade at, I measured it in AGI, 3.9 at the line.
So, Board Member Gardner, why did you ask for 4.1 if 3.9 does it?
4.9, or I'm sorry, 4.1 was just on the full sites on LU4. 3.9 is exactly on the line. We ran a specific code specifically for the property line.
Okay, this is Chairman Clark. Do we have any other questions for the applicant at this time? All right, seeing none. Josh, thank you for joining us from Texas. At this time, I would entertain, I will open public portion of tonight's meeting. Do we have any members from the public that would like to share on this agenda item?
This is Planner Luke Mortensen. We don't have anybody at City Hall either.
Board Member Gardner, motion to close the public.
Board Member Falvey, I second that motion to close public comment.
Chairman Clark, we have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please take vote on that?
Yes, Staff Liaison Catherine Week. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Barrett,
Aye.
Walensky,
Aye.
Weisner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, staff. This is Chairman Clark. Board, let's discuss. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
This is Board Member Falvey. Can I ask staff a question? In the packet, you talk about another ATM that had similar improvements at 900 Ohio Street. Can you talk about how the sites are similar or different, and if it was similar lighting improvements?
Yep, this is Planner Luke Mortensen. So part of the analysis we did was kind of do a history of if either similar variances had been granted for a financial use. We have not granted a similar variance for a financial use. As you guys are aware, you've granted lighting variances for other uses. One recent example of a similar situation that just came to our minds from being in the office was there was a Bank of America at 9th and Ohio that I believe in 2018 or 2019 had done ATM and drive-through improvements and had submitted a code compliant photometric plan. So our point was they were able to make similar ATM improvements, had a code compliant photometric plan, and were able to move through the process just with the building permit and electrical permits and that kind of thing.
Board Member Gardner, Luke, were the distances to the street the same?
Planner Luke Mortensen, in this case, it was a little bit different. It was closer to alley right of way. And it was closer to the alley right of way than this situation is to the property line.
And are the rules different for an alleyway than a street?
Nope. In the code section that they're seeking a variance from, it's specifically for property lines between two non-residentially zoned properties or a property line against a right-of-way. An alley is considered right-of-way.
Board Member Gardner, a question for the applicant. Was it you doing that analysis for the other Bank of America?
That's correct. Yes, we've been doing all of the lighting designs for Bank of America since, I believe, 2015. So yes, sir, we did do that one. I have the design in front of me.
So why, in your opinion, then, did you not need it then, but do need it now?
Sure. Let me pull up the design itself here, and I can be able to better answer your question. I don't want to spout something off and not be able to have the information in front of me. Give me one moment. Looks like we were failing there. We did 3.2 over the property line. And it got passed.
Chairman, can I ask staff a question? This is Member Herod.
Chairman Clark, please do.
Luke, I am curious about that Bank of America ATM over at 9th and Ohio, because as I remember, just not very far to the south of that ATM is an actual residential property, probably a rental property. What we've been talking about, the amount of light that's allowed to spill over into a right of way or into a commercially zoned area. What amount of light is allowed to spill over into a residentially zoned property?
Yeah. Planner Luke Mortensen, and I'll touch on that in just a second. If the discussion continues, I'm going to try to pull up that same plan for 900 Ohio. When we were looking at it, we were looking at the fact that there was no noted variance for it. So forgive me if we are been inaccurate in this situation. But to answer Board Member Herod's question, spillover light onto a residential lot, the maximum is much lower. It goes down to 0.2 foot candles measured at that residential lot line.
This is Chairman Clark asking if anybody else on the board has other thoughts or if anybody would like to propose a motion in this.
Right now, Chairman, I'm waiting for staff, Mr. Mortensen, to finish his thought. I think it's only fair. We had the applicant. He was well situated to be able to call up some stuff, on demand. And I think Luke is trying to look at his stuff to see if he can amplify a little bit on the city's position.
Yes, sir. So I don't know if I'm allowed to speak. I apologize. I'll wait.
Planner Luke Mortensen, I'm actually going to ask Catherine if she might be able to go into our internal system and shoot that over to me. As far as being able to speak to the specifics of the other Bank of America site at this moment, I'm not prepared to do that.
Board Member Gardner, Chairman, Was the did the applicant ask to speak to clarify something, or was I not following?
Yes, I believe you did. This is Chairman Clark. Josh, as long as you introduce yourself, you're welcome to share at this time.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is Josh at GMR with the lighting designer. We did 2 separate lighting designs at 900 Parkway. What was this one? I'm sorry, I don't remember the
900 Ohio.
900 Ohio Street. So we did 2 separate lighting designs. We did an ELP design, which is a Bank of America wide lighting design, which is where we do the whole site. We also did a cap ad where we added a drive-through ATM. So in our ELP and cap ad both, we had 3.2 at the property line on both of them when they were submitted. I just wanted to put that out there. I know that that's 0.2 over your ordinance instead of 0.9, but that did go through. I just wanted to verify that with everyone.
This is
both of the design.
This is Chairman Clark asking the applicant, is that at your 3-foot elevation instead of the ground level elevation?
No, sir, that's at grade. That's at grade.
And this is Member Harrod, and if I could ask the applicant just to clarify something, I'm really curious about what the lighting was at the property line just south of that ATM at 9th and Ohio.
Okay. Let me go and find that. I have the full survey. As well as doing lighting designs for Bank of America, we do full surveys for every ATM for Bank of America in the US. So I have those lighting levels at the property line currently. Hold on one second. Haven't done one yet this year. Let me go back 1 year.
We're at 6-foot candles at the property line. At 3 foot above grade. So naturally, about three foot of difference, you lose about 2 foot candles. So we're around 5 or 4, depending.
And that's for the one to the south that Travis was talking about. That's Board Member Gardner.
Yes, sir. The drive-through. Yes, sir.
This is Member Harrod again, and I think just to make sure I heard Luke Mortensen correctly, I think Luke advised us that the amount of spillover light allowed at the property line in a residential setting is quite a bit lower than what we're discussing as far as the agenda item tonight. Is that right, Luke?
Yeah, Luke Mortensen, planner.
Board Member Harrod is correct. The amount of light spillover onto a residential property would be significantly lower than kind of what's been discussed right now. And I think I'd just like to clarify again, I can't speak to the specific 9th and Ohio Bank of America, why that obviously must have been approved in an incorrect manner. Those levels would have required a variance. And again, because we must have approved it incorrectly, our analysis was then a little bit incorrect when we were looking back at past cases. So as to how this went through, I can't speak to that at this very minute. But I'll agree that our analysis is off a little bit.
So this is Catherine Week. Can I speak for a second? Because I do have the file pulled up from at least 900 Ohio, and I'm not seeing the document that's showing it at 6, but I am seeing a revised lighting plan. And I can't speak to whether or not we're looking at the same version of the same plan. So I don't know. I can't accurately say whether or not we're looking at the same plan that was submitted that is currently being discussed. So that would require me to further look to see what version was actually approved with the permit and which version we're looking at here.
Sure. This is Josh at GMR. I have version 2 dated 19/07/16. If that's the one you're looking at, that's the most current version.
It does look like that is the version, except that I'm looking at light levels that don't go all the way to the property line. So there's like a radius that's being shown.
Yeah, that would be the levels taken at that you're looking at the cap ad where we strictly lit for the added ATM.
I'm not seeing any other photometric plan in this file, so that may be why there's a difference in what was approved. The only one I'm seeing is the one you just referenced showing that radial design.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that's what is currently what I'm looking at in the permit file. I guess is what you're saying is the cap ad, which is the radial design, does not show any lighting levels at the property line. So that may be what was reviewed as part of the building permit. I don't know. I can't speak to that at this particular moment.
For this board member Gardner, for discussion purposes, because this is pretty complicated and somewhat confusing. My biggest concern is the difference between our Kansas requirement and the national standard for safety for ATMs. And I'd like some help from other board members about solving that. The fact that they both conflict or don't meet doesn't meet the national safety standard, to me could make it unique, and certainly providing more light would improve the safety. So it almost, to me, with a conflict between a national safety standard and the Kansas's spillover light standard, where it's not affecting a resident, would cure both unique and unnecessary hardship 1 and 3.
This is Chairman Clark. Board Member Gardner, could you please maybe more explicitly state the discrepancy? Could you state what you believe the national safety level standard is and the Kansas level is?
I'm going to go back to Josh to ask for those exact numbers.
Hey, this is Josh at GMR, lighting designer for Bank of America. Yeah, so the national standard for regulated states is 2-foot candle minimum, 3 foot above grade, 50 foot from each exposure. They also have a standard of 10-foot candles within a 5-foot radius of any obstructed and unobstructed radius. There's also a parking standard for 2-foot candles within 60 foot of any parking of any exposure that you can walk up to, i.e. you can drive your car, you can get out of your car and you need to walk to the ATM. That area that you park your car within 60 foot of that ATM also needs to be at 2-foot candles. So that's for any regulated
So what I'd like you to do is identify where the two conflict. That's a lot of different lighting in different spots. Which one is the one that's conflicting with
Absolutely.
the need for the variance?
Sure. So the 50-foot and the 60-foot is where we're having problems. Okay. As you can see, if you reference the Bauer Farms plan, you can see that there is in fact parking within the 60-foot radius of this exposure. In this instance, it's a lobby with a 24-hour access that we need to meet 2-foot candles. In order for us to meet that 2-foot candles, 3 foot above grade, and also meet your 3-foot candles at grade, this is the lighting design that needs to happen. If it's not approved, we can go back to the drawing board and try to request that we make this site not safe for people to utilize at night after the sun goes down. But that is the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here today. We're trying to make the site as safe as possible for anybody utilizing it after, say, 8 o'clock, which is where you lose all light levels.
So,
Chairman Clark, so if I could say,
Board Member Gardner, so for the chairman, did that answer the question you asked?
This is Chairman Clark. I was going to repeat it back and just say that, like, my understanding is that the lighting safety standard for an ATM or the space at hand that we're talking about here is at least 2-foot candles, and the city's requirement at the property line is less than 3-foot candles. And if either one of those assumptions is incorrect, I would totally stand to be corrected on that. But in my understanding, there is the possibility that we could have a light reading between 2 and 3 that would satisfy both conditions at the same time.
This is Josh at GMR. The lighting design you're seeing is the bare minimum where we can meet compliance in this site. The reason why the lighting levels you're seeing is it's the difference in grade. It is where I think where we're getting hung up, which is completely understandable. It's a very complicated process. To get the 3.9 with the proximity of the existing poles that are on site. If I wanted to meet compliance with the existing poles, I would need to add backlight control on the poles, right? A shield, if you will. If I were to do that, I would lose my throw to the right and to the left where I'm utilizing my UU2 poles, okay? Which would make me not meet in the middle of this compliance area. But I would meet your ordinance given the backlight control of the poles. Does that make sense? We're limiting the distribution of the poles if we were to meet your ordinance.
This is Chairman Clark. I think I understand that. My only concern was something that you mentioned earlier, that we would not be able to meet the safety conditions without having to install another $20,000 to $30,000 worth of lighting. Is that true?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I feel like there's probably a scenario where we could go back and remove a tree and add a new pole with backlight control. But even then, you're running the risk of a new pole being 5 foot from your property line. Even the lowest lumen fixture, if it's close enough to a property line, you'll never meet the property line ordinance.
Yeah.
Where the tree is. I don't know if you can see the tree.
Yeah, this is Chairman Clark, and I think to Board Member Gardner's concern, what it seems that we're not in a place where it's an impossible design. It's just one that has not yet been explored or discovered.
So, Board Member Gardner, then, if we deny the variance request, then this is a question for staff, then they can go back and redo it another way and come back with another variance request, even though it's the same property, it's a slightly different lighting situation or potential situation. And then what happens is if the other one can't do the job either, is there a way to defer this till they do another analysis, or do we have to say yay or nay tonight?
Luke Mortensen, planner, we would accept any additional photometric plan and review it. We'd also accept any other variance request and review it. As far as deferring the item, Catherine, were you about to speak to that?
Sorry, I was muted. Staff Liaison, Catherine Week. I was just going to say that you really only have three options. You can approve, you can deny, or if you need further data, you can defer for further study, which you've done in the past. Whether or not a resubmittal would trigger a variance it's possible. If they came up with another design that also didn't meet the standard, they could bring that back. It doesn't preclude them if they have another alternative that needs a variance that they can't come back and ask for a variance. They could also resubmit and it would be compliant. So, I mean, there are possibilities, and that would be, the applicant's choice based on whatever the design fleshed out to be.
Well, Board Member Gardner, with that in mind, that I'd move the item get deferred, allow the applicant to send in or to do the other analysis and send it in. If it cures the problem, it cures the problem. If we have to meet again to approve a cured problem, then we should do that. And obviously, I'd like the staff to put that in a motion that makes sense and is shorter.
Yeah, well, this is Chairman Clark. At that point, that just sounds like a rejection, to come back and try again. I'm not sure if there's any benefit to just deferring for the sake of giving the applicant another chance. Looking at staff for any guidance on that. But.
Well, Chairman Clark, I would say this, and I don't know if this is something that it sounds like the general and I we have concerns, but we have kind of two different concerns. The general is concerned about our code being in conflict with a nationally used and recognized safety standard or measure. My issue is really kind of talking about, and I don't think this is a non sequitur, but the board and the staff can tell me I'm wrong, but we have the same business, Bank of America, and we have their location over at 9th and Ohio. And there we have an ATM, just like we have an ATM here. And I think we've been advised tonight that particular lighting scheme over at 9th and Ohio is throwing something between 50 and 100% more light at the property lines of a residential area to the south, and also, to my recollection, also directly to the east are residential properties. But in the present situation, staff is correctly applying the code and noting that we have too much light that's spilling over the property line, but our adjacent property is, as the applicant has pointed out, is a Taco Bell drive-through. And there's really a wild variance between the two. And I am concerned about, I don't think staff has made a mistake. I think staff has appropriately and properly applied the rules tonight, but I am concerned about, an almost arbitrary application of the rules when we're letting, the same business entity operate, in this manner over at 9th and Ohio. And I wonder if it's appropriate to send back to staff to explain what happened over at 9th and Ohio that's allowing that to happen.
The board member here, this is staff liaison Catherine Week. So it doesn't have to happen often that in a meeting, a non-compliancy issue may come out, which in fact, this may be a non-compliant issue. And if it were approved with a non-compliant lighting formation, then we would absolutely want to be taking a look at it to make sure whatever process did not catch that were to catch that. I can't speak tonight without delving into that file more deeply to see exactly what is occurring there. Like I said, the document that I was looking at doesn't show the light levels all the way to the property line, which may be where the discrepancy is coming in. But I will say this, that if that particular site at 9th and Ohio is out of compliance with our lighting regulations, then it would, staff would be, our code enforcement staff would actually be looking at bringing them into compliance. So it's not an issue of they're doing something over here they shouldn't be doing. We always try to apply the code equally and levelly for all applications. So if there's some step that was missed, I can assure you that we'll probably be looking at that.
This is board member Shalinsky. Answering our chairman's concern of are we really not just denying this if we're asking for a deferral and them coming back with something else? And technically, I think that is true. The advantage to the applicant in us doing that would be that they would not to pay for a new application fee. They could, I suppose, just tweak this one rather than have to start from scratch, which, you know, I would be okay with. That said, I'm not at all prepared to approve this tonight as submitted. So
This is Eric Weisner, board member. That's kind of the same line of thought that I had. I'm also not prepared to approve it, and I'm not casting blame in any way, but I think there's probably, I mean, if I was the applicant and I had something approved and came with something similar, and this came about because it was approved, but it was maybe done under false pretenses, it just really confuses and complicates the matter. And I would, rather than getting into disapproving an application, rather just defer this until we have maybe more complete information, or maybe a revision based on the fact that the applicant now has better information about a previous application that possibly would not have been approved.
The board recognizes Catherine. Staff.
Just want to make a suggestion that perhaps the board may, excuse me, want to ask the applicant. I mean, if they have to go back and tweak anyway, and this might be a question for the applicants, whether or not they're tweaking to potentially have another variance request or tweaking the design to be compliant so that they're not having to go through the process. It may, you know, you may ask the applicant if there's a different, obviously they're going to have to spend time on the application regardless. And, you know, their services are going to be utilized regardless. So you might ask them if they're going to have to revise, if it would be for compliance, that they are open to a deferral for that purpose.
Yeah, I will. This is Josh from GMR Lighting Designer. Yeah, we're gonna have to, because it sounds like it's probably going to be not approved, which is it's okay. We can go back to the drawing board. The problem with that is we're going to have to be non-compliant here. So we're going to have to ask or request to be less than industry standard for STAFE-wise for banks at this location because of this. So I also have an additional question. Would you, given that we do this all the time and chances of us coming back here pretty great, would you have rather seen the Taco Bell lights turned on in our photometrics, given real world photometrics, or strictly lighting off the building and our property?
This is Planner Luke Mortensen. We are looking for the foot candles, the intensity of the light in foot candles at the subject property.
So I think we'd want to only consider the subject property.
Only the subject property, okay.
This is Board Member Shalinski. I would be curious, though, how much spillover light the Taco Bell is generating. It seems like if both sides are doing spillover, how do you tell which is from what source? And it seems like where they meet at the property line, it's going to be really, really bright. So maybe in fact, you are meeting your industry standards on that basis, even though it's not from your own lighting.
Board Member Gardner, I completely agree and would suggest that Josh do the analysis using the light from the Taco Bell and the level of lighting you would need to meet the security thing with them combined. And if that reduces the lighting requirement for you by yourself to within the Kansas limits, then I think you've solved the problem.
Hey, this is Josh at GMR here again. Yeah, there's no chance that we will meet your property line ordinance if I build the Taco Bell lights in. The Taco Bell lights are 2 foot away from the property line with no backlight control at 1,000 watts per light, and there are 2 of them. We're well above 3-foot candles. So if I were to build those in, we would never see a compliant design for y'all's ordinance.
No, I don't think you're following what I'm saying. If you include their lighting in the analysis you need for your safety numbers, but then you could reduce your lighting because their lighting is so bright. Therefore, you could reduce what you're putting out so that you alone don't go past the standard. As far as the state's concerned, it's only your lighting that's the problem.
Yeah, this is Josh again from GMR. Unfortunately, we cannot utilize other fixtures on other properties for our security purposes for the simple fact of liability. What if one day Taco Bell decides they want to turn the lights off at 10 o'clock or 11 or 12 or 1? What happens at 3 or 4 when somebody needs to get money from the ATM and their lights are off and we don't meet standard, right? So that's where we're at for that one. Although a great idea.
Yeah, and this is Chairman Clark. Just kind of reiterating that, like, what if it's not a Taco Bell next week?
I do have a clarification too, if I can have a moment. Catherine Week. So one point of clarification, and we've had so many different kinds of BZA cases lately where we have remanded for further study. That's for actually administrative appeals. So what your actions are tonight are you can approve with conditions, or you can deny. Those are your three courses of action that you have to choose from for strict BZA items. The remand for further study is actually for the administrative appeals.
This is Chairman Clark thanking staff for that reminder. That rings true to what I think was stewing under my head somewhere.
Board Member Falvey, with that in mind, I think since we need the further information, it sounds like they need to go back to the drawing boards. And so I think I'm in favor of denial for this case before us tonight.
If that's Board Member Shalinski, if that's a motion, I will second it.
Okay, this is Chairman Clark. We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please take a roll call on that?
Staff Liaison Catherine Week, I just want to clarify with Board Member Falvey that was in fact a motion and not just an opinion.
It was an opinion, but I can make it a motion.
Oh, thank you, staff.
I can go ahead and take a vote then. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Barrett,
Aye.
Zielinski,
Aye.
and Weisner.
Aye.
The motion carries.
All right, Chairman Clark, thank you, staff, for doing that. To the applicant, Josh, thanks again for joining us and for putting up with the opinions of Kansas lighting professionals, amateurs here. So, all right, that I believe concludes the agenda items for this evening. We'll move on to the next section, miscellaneous.
We do not have any miscellaneous items other than to let you know we will potentially have a BZA item, at least one for the next meeting.
Board Chair Clark, thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Zoning Appeals.
This is Eric Weisner, so moved.
Board Member Gardner, second.
Chairman Clark asking staff to please take roll.
Staff Liaison Catherine Week, Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Barrett,
Aye.
Zielinski,
Aye.
Weisner.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you and good evening. And I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 1st Board of Sign Code Appeals. I have here not to take roll. Is that correct, staff?
You should still take roll, even though
Okay.
we've already rolled in. We can do that again.
Okay, then we will do a roll call to determine if there's a quorum.
Clark,
Present.
Falvey,
Present.
Gardner,
Here.
Barrett,
Present.
Zielinski,
Present.
Weisner,
Here.
and we have quorum. Thank you.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Next agenda item, I think is going to be communications again. Are there any communications to come before the board?
Do not have any communications, no.
Thank you. Do we need to disclose any ex parte communications and or abstentions for specific agenda items? Seeing none, will there be any agenda items in this evening to be deferred?
We do not have any deferrals, no.
Thank you. Do we have any minutes to approve from previous board meetings?
I do not believe we have any minutes from Signs Variance Board.
All right. Then I would like to begin the public hearing portion of this evening's meeting with our single agenda item for a variance on the permanent wall sign at 5100 Overland Drive. At this point, we'd like to hear from staff.
Good evening. I'm Barry Walthall with Planning and Development Services Department. I am the Building Codes Manager. Standing in for Plans Examiner Janet Smalter tonight. She couldn't make it. So I'll just summarize her report, which I think she did a real good job on. So we're talking about the police headquarters facility, 5100 Overland Drive. They're asking for variances for the number of signs permitted and the size of signs permitted. Start with the zoning district. The property is zoned GPI, government, public and institutional. So with that GPI zoning, the director is required by the sign code to assign a zoning district for sign code compliance purposes that most nearly matches the land use and surrounding land uses and zoning designations. So in this case, the commercial office zoning district was assigned. And that is one of the more restrictive sign code districts. So the number of signs that is allowed on a building in a CO district is 1. And that sign would need to face a wall with either an exterior public entrance to a tenant space or that fronts a street right of way or shared parking area. That's for multi-tenant, or 1 sign or per public street frontage for a single tenant building, which is the case here. So the proposal is for 2 signs, one on the south building wall, which fronts onto Overland Drive, and one on the north wall, which fronts onto open space to the north and some residential zoned undeveloped property to the northwest. The size of signs in the CO district are limited to 32 square feet. And the south wall sign is proposed to be 201 square feet. The north wall sign is proposed to be 79 square feet. In both cases, the signs are required to be less than 5% or no more than 5% of the wall area. And as far as the scale of the signs to those walls, both are within that 5% area. So not a problem there. So just running through an analysis of the criteria required for the granting of a variance. In the opinion of staff, conditions may exist which are unique to the location and not ordinarily found in the same district zone. We did a comparison in our analysis of basically other public safety uses in similar locations and zoning districts. And really those tend to be pretty much fire stations, and the nature of use between a police facility of this nature and a fire station is pretty significantly different. With fire station, the uses of those are generally pretty limited to just the fire station personnel. They don't get a lot of public visits. Not saying they don't get any, but it's not daily and frequently. Whereas a police facility, they will have frequent and daily public access to the facility and public visiting as customers. The second condition, in the opinion of staff, the granting of a variance may not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property improvements to the neighborhood. So I mentioned earlier that the space to the north, the property to the north is open space. So it's set aside to remain open space under this zoning code. You just don't anticipate that that would ever be developed. Also, that undeveloped property to the northwest, it would really not likely be negatively impacted just because of the nature of the terrain and the mature kind of landscaping already in place. The south wall sign is appropriate in design and scale and placement. That it needs to be visible for the public to be able to identify and access the facility. It is, we think, probably appropriate for that ability to public use effectively and efficiently, and it just, in the opinion of staff, doesn't have any negative impact. The third criteria is that the strict application of the requirements of the sign code may result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the code. While the proposed signs don't conform with the prescriptive requirements, the number of signs and location of the signs and size of the signs benefit the public welfare, and not allowing appropriate signage, I think, is kind of injurious to the public welfare. People need to be able to find this and easily identify it. So the staff recommendation is for approval of the variance request for number and size of signs. And with that, I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Chairman Clark, thank you, staff. Do we have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Board Member Shalinski. Yeah, I'm a little concerned here. I'm not entirely certain if to the north of the building is open space, and the contention is that it's not likely to be developed, or if it is, that it's going to be screened with trees so the sign won't really be a problem. What exactly public purpose and benefit does the sign on the north of the building serve? It seems to me like it's maybe kind of superfluous, and the visibility of the one on the south side is really what's important. Am I missing something?
Well, I'll try to respond to your question. Barry Walthall again, Building Codes Manager. The open space to the north, you don't anticipate that would ever be developed under this current zoning regulation. It would have to be rezoned, and that's unlikely. As far as the necessary sign and what how that north wall sign is necessary, I'll defer that question respectfully to the applicant. I think they would be in better position to answer that question.
Good evening. This is Melinda Harger with the City of Lawrence Municipal Services and Operations Department. I am the project manager for this construction project.
Hey, Melinda, just as an order, this is Chairman Clark. We are still listening to staff at this point in time.
Oh, I apologize. I thought he was deferring to the applicant.
No, but we have a portion of the meeting just for the applicant. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Does anyone have any questions for staff at this time?
Bethany Falvey, board member. We're also looking at a variance for the size of the sign. Is that correct, staff?
Barry Wellfall, Building Codes Manager. Yes, that's correct. The signs are signs in the CO district. Wall signs in the CO district are limited to 32 square feet in area. So both signs are proposed to be larger than 32 square feet. One, the north sign is proposed to be 79 square feet. The south sign is proposed to be 201 square feet. So yes, that is correct.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Any other questions for the staff at this time?
Board Member Gardner, just, well, I guess it is a question. And it's because we don't do the sign one very often. I noticed in the section 3, it's sign code may result in practical difficulties. So it doesn't have the strength of the unnecessary hardship. It does say or, but it doesn't have the strength of the unnecessary hardship, which is the almost impossible kind of a thing. Is that right, Barry?
Yeah, I would. Yes, I if I'm following you, I would agree with that statement.
Thanks.
Chairman Clark, are there any other questions at this time? If not, I would love to hear from the applicant.
Good evening. Thanks again. This is Melinda Harger with Municipal Services and Operations, project manager for the police facility project. I wanted to add some clarification on the open space to the north. We do have a master plan for this site. The full site is city owned, so the additions to the police facility will take place on the north side of the creek. The vegetation is all to remain. That was one of the highlights of this design that we shared at our public meetings. So that vegetation will remain in place. There will be an access road to the north and future buildings outlined there, laid out there. We do have some of that addition listed in our next 5-year CIP, 2021 to 2025, to start on one of those buildings on the north side. Beyond that, and I'm not sure the exact distance, but it's probably 400 or 500 feet to the north is the next lot, which is open space. And that is destined to be a park, designed to be a park. That's part of the master plan, and there's funding in our 5-year CIP to build out that park as well. So that is all city-owned property. The purpose of the seal to match the seal that's on the front. So we have the words Lawrence Police Department as well as the seal. It's a piece of art with the guiding principles. It's also a symbol for those in the community that may not be able to read English or be able to distinguish what it is without that symbol. On the north side, it's just a reminder to, the police that enter each day, what those guiding principles are that they follow. So it complemented the building, and we are submitting it as signage since it does match the sign on the south side. We envisioned it as a piece of art for the building.
Board Member Gardner, a question for Melinda. So in the future plans for the north side, would a person in the public be among the buildings on the north and then need to come back to the south to that main building? And so they might be, hey, well, go to the building with the seal on it. Is that something that would happen or not happen?
Melinda Harger, Municipal Services and Operations. There's potential for that. It is a training facility that is planned on that north side. The design for that is, we have not gone into the detailed design, but there is potential that we would have times whenever the public is in that area. I know there's been a lot of discussions lately about how to bring the community more into this facility. So that is one of the goals as we continue to build out the police facility.
And the police do have a Citizens Academy, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
This is Chairman Clark. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I would like to open the public portion of this agenda item. Seeing that there's just a giant empty room where Luke is, I would entertain a motion to close the public portion of this meeting.
Board Member Gardner, so moved.
This is
Board
Eric
member-
Weisner, second.
Chairman Clark asking staff to take a roll call on that.
Matthew is on Captain Week. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Shalinski,
Aye.
Eisner.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any feelings on this? Any discussion points they'd like to bring up?
Board Member Shalinski, I think I already kind of stated it in my question. I think the north sign, if it serves any purpose, it's pretty limited. And we're not supposed to take into consideration, as I recall, the identity of an applicant, just the merits of the application. And I'll just say that I think if this were any other applicant asking for this other than the city of Lawrence itself, it probably would not be receiving favorable consideration. So I don't feel like I can do that in this situation.
This is Board Member Falvey. I also feel the same, that I think they can meet the number of sign requirements. As far as size, the study that they showed the comparison on what would meet the standards versus what's proposed, I think for visibility, size I'm okay with. That might be a question for later for staff, that can we deny one portion and approve another part of the request?
We can approve. This is Chairman Clark. We can approve with conditions.
Thank you for the clarification.
This is Board Member Harrod. I remember previously, before this board, we had a discussion when the city was moving a lot of its offices over to the Riverside Mall there, and at that time, I said then what I say now, which is, in all practical purposes, in some instances, government entities are not similarly situated to residential or commercial entities. They serve a function that they are public entities. They serve the entire public. And in this case, we're talking about the new police headquarters. We're talking about one of the most important government buildings in the entire community. And so, as a result, there are some different considerations for what you want to do with that particular structure. I believe that though Commissioner Shalinski is correct, the badging on the north side is somewhat superfluous. It also is there to once again identify the building and the importance of the building, and also that badge there and the call outs around it are really there to emphasize a certain amount of esprit de corps. Like when these law enforcement officers walk in there, you are here, under a public trust. And I think that that's a good and necessary thing. And then also when I have the applicant talking about there's going to be possibly some build out to the north at a later date for a training facility, which is certainly foreseeable given the amount of land that's there. I think also at that time it would be forward thinking of us that we appropriately badge the north side of the southernmost building on that site. So I see the commissioner's points, but it's my belief that we're dealing with a building that serves a markedly different purpose than many, many, many other buildings that we're going to be faced with on this committee.
Board Member Gardner, I share the concern about approving something for the city that other applicants wouldn't. But I also share Travis's point. And I've been in a serving role my whole 2 careers, both in the military and in the Department of Homeland Security. And this sign, which has basically their values and mission in it, is really important. So I can't overstress kind of an extension of what Travis was saying. I wasn't wild about approving the sign that went into where the city hall stuff is, but I did support it. And this one I support even more. Although I'm concerned about it, it's kind of, taking care of our own kind of a thing.
This is Board Member Eric Weisner. I think I share some of the same sentiments of General Gardner and Travis. I am a little concerned that, frankly, I've heard the same arguments go the other way against private businesses, which is a little concerning. But at the same time, without getting into the what this public sector sign represents, I do think there is a standard that we have to uphold with respect to it does serve the public, it doesn't serve private interests. So we need to make sure that it's I give deference to their ability to display what they need to. So I'm going to support the staff recommendation when a motion's made.
This is Chairman Clark. If I could ask a question of staff in regards to the most recent changes to the sign code. I believe that there has been something. There was a consideration that was asked of us last time in regards to the content of the sign and whether or not we were able to consider that as part of the decision-making process.
Building code manager Barry Walthall. Chairman, that's a complicated question and issue. The Supreme Court has made some rulings that make it very clear that the message of a sign is a matter of free speech. So for a jurisdiction such as the city of Lawrence to regulate the content of a sign is generally prohibited. About the only thing that we could regulate there would be obscenity or vulgarity a type of language. So to answer your question, for the most part, we're not really able to contemplate sign content.
This is Eric Wisener. I just want to clarify, I would be approving staff's recommendation regardless of whether this is for a public or private entity. I just wanted to make the statement at the beginning of my brief spiel that I think sometimes there is a preference given over public entities versus private entities. In my opinion, that shouldn't matter. So why I stated that was, I just wanted to be clear, I would be approving this either way.
This is Chairman Clark weighing in on my 2 cents. I think I have a challenge with, this is a sign decision, and signage, as it is, the intent of it often seems to be for, in some cases, wayfinding or identification. And so when I think of a structure this large, tucked into it's surrounded to the west by residential, and separated from a high school on the east, and there is a Walmart to the south. This seems like it does not need the additional wayfinding or identification that signage would normally promote. And then I feel like it's a challenge then to try and figure out whether the badges are art, or if they are some symbol of community, serving some purpose beyond that of a sign. And if that's the case, should we be deciding that as a sign code board? It feels uncomfortable to me.
Board Member Gardner, and I feel like the sign is more than just art.
This is Board Member Harrod. I would amplify a couple points, possibly because there was dead air, but in my former career, I was a prosecutor for the Attorney General and at the county level. And I've come in the back door of numerous law enforcement agencies, whether it be a sheriff, police department, the KBI. And I will tell you 9.9 out of 10 times, it's just going to be some dumpy door in a parking lot. And in this case, we have a very nice and aesthetically pleasing parking lot with a really beautiful, and I think, as the general said, meaningful symbol of what lay inside this public building greeting us as we come in. And so from my practical experience, I appreciate what it is and what it's doing. And then also, just to circle back and talk a little bit about something Commissioner Schwalinsky said, as far as, the sign facing north, I'm not sure if he hit it directly, but it's just, there's no deleterious effect. It just, there's nobody to the north, and there's not going to be anybody to the north except for more city-owned property and probably a training center. So when we are confronted with a situation where we're allowing an oversized sign to be put up, it's not like when we were dealing with allowing the sign on the new LMH West Campus, where we allowed a gigantic sign to go in, but that sign made sense because it was proportional to the building and to the site on top of a hill looking down onto the South Lawrence traffic way. In this case, we don't even have to, I don't have to get there. It's a sign that will greet visitors entering from the south parking lot, and it's not going to bother anybody else in the area. So I would just submit that if it helps anybody on the board.
This is Chairman Clark asking a clarification to Board Member Harrod. You said south parking lot. Did you mean north parking lot?
You are correct. Thank you, sir.
Board Member Gardner, one last thing. You guys know I was the Major General, the Adjutant General, and when you're the leader of an organization that has to keep the public's trust, the values that you have to inculcate into the folks that work there, you kind of want a constant symbol and reminder of it. So in my case, there was a Minuteman out in front of our building that I used talking about it frequently. This is a sign that the chief of police will use when he or she talks about the values that those people are meeting every time they walk in the building. And so I think it's very important. Thank you. If there's no more discussion, I'd move that the sign board approve the requested variance for the number and size of signs based on staff's finding of the conditions being met.
This is Eric Weisner, board member, second.
All right, staff, we have a motion and a second. Would you please take roll?
I'm going to propose an amendment to the motion.
Barry, we've got a motion and a second, so we're going to take a vote on that, I think. Is that the correct protocol at this time?
That would be the correct protocol unless since the second has already come, then yes, that would be the correct protocol.
Okay, so this is Chairman Clark. Board Member Jelinski, we will take a vote on this, and if a decision is not made, we will entertain your comment. So staff, please proceed in taking roll.
Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. Clark?
No.
Baldy?
No.
Gardner?
Aye.
Harrod?
Aye.
Shalinski?
No.
And Weisner?
Aye.
So a tie vote is a denial. So in this instance, the motion did not carry.
Oh, and that's it. This is Chairman Clark.
Gardner,
Clarifying that was the final vote then.
Correct.
Okay.
on that motion.
Correct.
Barry, did you have a modification that you were going to propose? So in other words, it would be a different motion?
Well, I was going to propose an amendment to the last motion.
This is Chairman Clark looking at
I was
this now.
not permitted to do that, so.
Yeah, the second had already come down, so the vote, you could have done a friendly amendment prior to the second, but because there was a motion and a second, the vote was called if there was a motion on the table. And so the votes have landed 3-3, which is basically a failure to recommend or a denial.
Are we allowed to have another motion?
I can pull up the sign code, I believe, and Barry may have it handy, I'm not sure, but I don't believe so, but I will check.
This is Chairman Clark, just out of curiosity, if I had made a motion to reject it, or if I made a motion to deny and it was tied 3-3, it would have been denied.
Correct.
Okay.
No, actually, no.
It would have been approved if I would have made the motion?
Well, it would have been a failure to, your denial would have been.
Yeah, that's tricky.
That doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't.
Let me pull up the sign code here.
It would seem like the motion would fail, but it doesn't mean that you can't do another motion.
That's correct. Yeah.
Seems like a motion to reconsider would be available.
Let me just double check to make sure that we're permitted to. Unless Barry, you have it handy.
Well, Building Code Manager Barry Walthall, I don't think that the sign code is going to answer that question. I think we should look, and I'm not quite there yet, but I believe probably it's going to come down to the discretion of the board on how they want to proceed with it.
I'm not exactly sure what rules we follow, but usually if somebody on the prevailing side of a motion, which I'm not really sure on a tie, I would think it would be whoever voted no in this case would technically be the prevailing side, wishes to reconsider, they could make that motion. That's usually how it works.
Yeah, my interpretation would be that the motion does not carry, and therefore we must try again until we can decide whether to approve, reject, or approve with conditions.
That works too.
Building Code Manager Barry Walthall, Catherine's going to double check me, but quick review, I'm not seeing that there's any sign code provision that would address this situation.
I didn't see it either. The variance process is outlined in 1827, and I'm not seeing that there is a specific way.
Looking at Robert's Rules of Order. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. This is Chairman Clark. According to Robert's Rules of Order, on a tie vote, the motion is lost, and the chair, if a member of the assembly, may vote to make it a tie unless the vote is by ballot. So I would just say that the motion is lost.
We can go that route. So in that case, that would require another motion.
Correct. And maybe some discussion before said motion.
Discussion, correct.
So Barry, what were you thinking?
I had concerns about the sign on the north side of the building. So if we were to decide to approve the sign on the south side of the building, I would be in favor of that. I voted against the motion as it was presented when I wasn't able to propose that as an amendment.
This is Chairman Clark.
I can't speak for the other no votes. That was mine.
Yeah. This is Chairman Clark. I'm just looking at Board Member Harrod, who might have ducked out during Board Member Shalinski's comment. Board Member Harrod, would you like to hear Board Member Shalinski's comment?
Yeah, that would be great. I lost my internet service, so I had to come back on through a tablet. Thank you.
Okay, this is Board Member Shalinski. I was saying that I was prepared to vote in favor of the signage on the south side, which still, of course, requires a variance because of size, but it's one sign and not two. And what I further said was I could not speak for the other people who voted no, but that was my reasoning. Since it was presented as approve the whole request, I voted against it. Obviously, I think the building needs signage.
All right, this is Chairman Clark, extending an offer to Board Member Shalinski to make that a motion.
Well, okay. I would move approval modifying the request, or modified approval of the request, I guess is how one would word it, to approve the proposed signage on the south side of the building and not the north side.
Board Member Falvey, I'll second that motion.
All right, we have this is Chairman Clark. We have a motion and a second. Staff, is that motion clear enough for the purpose of voting?
Yeah, I think as I'm understanding it, the motion is to approve the first variance for the size requirement on the south side and to deny the second variance for the additional signage on the north. Is that correct?
You said it much better than me.
Okay.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Staff, would you please take a vote on that?
Okay. So, Catherine Week, Staff Liaison. Clark?
No.
No or yes? I'm sorry.
No. Negative.
No. Okay. Ollie?
Yes.
Gardner?
Can I pass for a minute? Still thinking.
Harrod?
And point of clarification. So right now we are voting to approve the signage on the north side of the building and deny the signage on the south side of the building.
No, the opposite.
Flip that.
You're approving the signage on the south side of the building. And
Oh, you're right. Sorry. I would vote no to that.
Shalinski
Yes.
and Weisner? And then we'll
No. Sorry. Me?
Yes, Weisner.
No.
And Gardner?
No.
Okay, the motion does not carry.
Motion is lost again. This is Chairman Clark asking for other folks' opinions.
Mr. Chairman, when I was betrayed by my internet provider, I was trying to query the chair regarding the availability of a motion to reconsider. And I think I was, it's something that's available to us through Robert's Rules of Order. And secondly, normally a motion to reconsider would be made by, could only be made by a someone on the prevailing side. In this case, it was a tie. So it seems like the motion would be available from any member tonight. But I guess to broaden the question again, is a motion to reconsider the agenda item from staff available to us?
I believe so. We did go through the sign code, and I believe it is available. Basically, your motions have not carried at this point. So,
I have a question for Barry, Board Member Gardner. So there are a lot of buildings in town that are commercial buildings, Barry, that actually have stuff on the inside of their glass that is essentially a sign. Is there anything to prevent the police from putting that symbol on the inside of the glass of the building?
Was that a question for me or for?
Yes, it was a question for you, Barry.
Okay, I thought I heard that directed otherwise. No. If they wanted to move that to the interior of the building, that would remove it from the jurisdiction of the sign code.
Okay.
This is Board Member Falvey. I had similar thoughts that, again, the point of the sign is for wayfinding for mostly the public who will be entering from the south end. So the need for the north side is more for staff, and I don't think it's unimportant that the symbol is there, but we're not to take into account content. Is there a way to move the symbol inside as you're walking in so that staff can still see it as they're first walking into the building, but it's not a sign on the exterior of the building?
Very well thought, building codes manager. I would enlist the help of Melinda, the Harger, the project manager. I think that's possible. I don't know how feasible it is.
Melinda?
This is Melinda Harger with Municipal Services and Operations. I wanted to make sure it was okay to jump in. Is it all right? Okay. I do have our architect, Catherine Waldrop, here as well. If she could answer that question, I know she was involved in the design of that sign material.
Yeah, Catherine Waldrop, architect with Haber Wysocki Architecture. We have a large open space in investigations, which is for future build out of the investigations department inside of the building. That would be the only space that would be large enough for a scale sign of this nature. It's 10 feet in diameter. It's very large. You can see that on the pictures, and the reason for that is just because the site is so big. So my recommendation, truly, this is a piece of art, and to me, it's more of that. And so I might maybe make a recommendation that maybe you consider this as art, as opposed to a sign, because it sounds like the sticking point might be that it's a sign. And realistically, because of the scale and the fabrication size, I might not recommend having it on the interior of the building.
All right, this is Chairman Clark, and I would love to entertain that. The proposal before us tonight is one as a sign. There are specific guidelines for art and murals, and I don't know what the differences between those are off the top of my head.
Board Member Gardner, is that something you can answer, Barry?
This is Chairman Clark. The question is for staff. Do you know what the specific guidelines are for art and mural on the side of a building?
Yep, sorry, I had technical difficulty there. Couldn't get unmuted for some reason. Very well thought, building code manager. Okay, so I can read off the definitions of sign and work of art. The sign code does not have jurisdiction or authority over works of art. And the sign code board of appeals doesn't have in my opinion, doesn't have a role in that determination either. I think that this has been presented as a sign. I think when I read the definition of a sign, it'll meet that definition. But if the applicant wanted to pursue it as a work of art, that would entail a different process and a different review body. So let me get the definitions. Okay, so sign and this is long, so I apologize if I stumble through it, but a sign is any name, identification, description, display, or illustration that is affixed to, painted, or represented directly or indirectly upon a building or other outdoor surface or support structure, and that directs attention to or is designed or intended to direct attention to the sign face or to an object, product, place, building, structure, activity, person, institution, organization, or business, including all parts, portions, units, and materials composing the same, together with the frame, background, and supports, or anchoring thereof. For the purpose of the sign code, a work of art, as defined in this article, is not considered to be a sign. Likewise, any sign located entirely within an enclosed structure and not exposed to a public right-of-way or parking lot is not, for this purpose, for the purposes of the sign code, considered to be a sign. The definition of work of art is any mural, painting, or decoration, inscription, mosaic, painted glass, bas relief, or other similar art form of a permanent character that is intended for decoration, ornament, or commemoration, that is applied to, placed upon, or erected on any lot or parcel or wall of any building or structure. Typically, a work of art does not incorporate logos or commercial speech.
Board Member Gardner, if it's a piece of art, who makes the decision about whether it can be there or not?
The Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission.
Member Falvey, would that, if we're treating, if it's determined that the symbol on the south end or the north side, would that also apply to the same symbol on the north side?
Well, if the very well thought building codes manager, I'm assuming that question is directed to me. We have consistently, I believe, applied the sign code definition that a representation of a logo, whether if it's painted on a building or otherwise applied to a frame or structure or however it's displayed, a logo, a business logo or organizational logo, it isn't art, it is in fact a sign. I think if we consider one to be a sign, they're probably both signs. And I think the structure proposed to be mounted on the south wall is clearly a sign.
I think Catherine is trying, or Melinda is trying to get your attention, Mr. Chairman.
Apologies, Chairman Clark, acknowledging Melinda Harger.
Thank you, Melinda Harger. As I listened to those definitions, one thing that that stood out to me was that the sign had to face right-of-way or a public parking lot. And so the sign on the north side does not meet that, if I heard that correctly. It's secured parking on that side. So right now that is not public parking. We will be having public come in through that way. In the current phase, the public would enter and be escorted through the building, but they would have to be let in through the secured parking to access that parking lot. And then they would need to know, of course, which door to enter. So the symbol is close to the entrance there, but there are several doors on that north side. So it could, act as wayfinding, I guess, in a way. It draws a little bit of attention to the entrance, but if that definition says that it has to face a public parking lot or right of way, then I just wanted to point out that that is not the case on the north side.
Mr. Chairman, Barry Walthall, Building Code Manager. Could I clarify?
Oh, yes, Chairman Clark, asking you to please clarify.
Okay, so in that definition, the piece of the definition that had to do with facing a right-of-way or parking lot, public or otherwise, is if the sign is located entirely within an enclosed structure. If it were entirely enclosed within a structure and not exposed to a right-of-way or a parking lot, then it would not be considered a sign. This isn't proposed to be entirely enclosed within a structure. So I apologize, but unfortunately, that's not our way out of this. Good thinking. I appreciate the quick thinking, but unfortunately, it doesn't quite work.
Mr. Chair, would the chair consider at this point a motion to reconsider the original agenda item as presented to us by city staff?
Yeah, this is Chairman Clark. Could you elaborate on your term reconsider? My understanding earlier on was just reconsidering it was we were going to take another motion.
Well, it's really more of a point of order, a point of clarification. Is I'm trying to figure out what the chair will allow. I believe that the Board of Zoning Appeals is governed by our code and by where the code doesn't specifically articulate some issue, then we're governed by Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order allow for a motion to reconsider of a previous item. As I've said before, the rub is the motion would normally be made by someone on the prevailing side, but in this case, there was no prevailing side. There was just a tie. So I think it's open to anybody. So if the chair would consider it, then that would be the motion that I would make, is a motion to reconsider the original item as presented by the staff to see where the board is right now, if there's been any change in the feeling of anyone that's voted previously.
This is Chairman Clark. So we're reconsidering the original motion.
The original item as presented by staff. So the first motion that we had on this issue.
Okay. I am going to acknowledge staff member Catherine Week. You just muted yourself.
Just to clarify, so the sign code board, or the sign code, does not regulate how the board votes or what happens in cases of votes, but the Board of Zoning Appeals section does specifically talk about the vote of the board in 2014-02. So a tie vote by the Board of Zoning Appeals on a variance request, or the lack of approval of a motion by the majority of members present and voting, shall be considered a denial. So what I had originally stated in the first instance is in fact a denial.
Board Member Shalinski, so that would mean that the prevailing side was those who voted for denial, since that was the result.
Well, it was a tie vote. Basically a tie vote is in essence a denial of the request.
So there is no prevailing side?
Right.
Well, if there's no prevailing side, then under Robert's rules, which require the motion to be from someone on the prevailing side,
well,
there's no one that can make the motion.
I think my point here is that we should not have gone back to the Roberts rules. It's specific in the Board of Zoning Appeals actions that a tie vote is a denial of the application.
So we have no rules at all that govern the sign code?
That is the rule. So the sign code Board of Appeals operates under the same purview as the Board of Zoning Appeals as far as their procedures. The sign code refers all variance requests to the Board of Zoning Appeals. You're acting as the sign code Board of Appeals, but your process, I believe, is the same.
So we would be governed by Robert's rules.
Well, we're governed by 2014-02 I first, which specifically states that the vote of the board, a tie vote, is a denial.
Okay.
This is Chairman Clark expressing intent in that, like, that is news to me, and so I think just out of curiosity, I think Board Member Gardner made the motion and Board Member Weisner approved or seconded it. Is that correct?
I think I had Shalinski. I had made the. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct.
In the initial one, and I would just out of curiosity to those two board members, if you had known what we have just learned about the specific 2014-I rule that governs our board, would you have made that motion and would you have made that second?
I don't know where you're going with that.
I'm just saying I would have encouraged us to maybe stand down from the motion.
Yeah.
Given the weight of the discussion. I thought my understanding was that we would have it, the motion would be lost or not be carried, and then we could continue the conversation and continue the discussion.
Yeah, I probably would have waited for some more discussion, but I did see that Melinda raised her hand, so you might see what she was wanting to say there.
Okay.
I also say that part of the confusion, I think, is perhaps that you're trying to roll both variances into one motion. And we can check with Barry, but the way the variances are set up, perhaps they should be voted on separately if that is an option, Gary. The sign code.
Okay. This is Board Member Clark, acknowledging Melinda Harder.
Thank you, Melinda Harger with MSO. That's what I was going to ask, is if this could be voted on as two separate items as opposed to being lumped together. It appears that if, you know, everyone wasn't aware of what that would do, that maybe that wouldn't govern in this case.
Yes. Chairman Clark acknowledges Staff Member Barry Werthel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barry Walthall, Building Code Manager. Catherine, sorry I wasn't quicker to respond to your question to me. I'm working on a tablet, and it's a little different than a PC. So having a little trouble with the mute and unmute at times. I think that's reasonable, Melinda and Catherine, that that each item could be voted on separately.
Board Member Falvey, is clarifying the two separate items, would it be the size variance and the number of signs variance, or would it be one facade versus the other?
If that's directed at me, Building Code Manager Barry Walthall again, it would be 2 votes, one on number of signs permitted and a second on the allowable sign area or allowable sign size.
This is Eric Weisner, board member. Just to clarify, maybe so the number of signs essentially allows for the south sign to happen, and then the vote on the size is for the north sign to occur, basically.
I will venture to assume that's directed at me, Barry Walthall, Building Code Manager. Okay, so the number of signs allowed is 1. So yes. If you approve the variance for number of signs, you're allowing them to have
opposite signs. Is what I meant. Yes.
And then the second variance request is for sign size. If you were to not approve the first the variance request for number of signs, they could have 1 sign, and if you approved the variance on sign size, they could choose to put a sign on either the north or the south, and then have the larger sign size. If you approve both, they could have 2 signs and the size of sign that they desire, if that makes sense.
Okay, this is Chairman Clark. As an order, I'm going to look to staff, I believe at this point, for the authority to make a motion to reject all motions and decisions that have been made thus far. Is that even an option that we have on the table at this point in time?
I think at this point, based on the confusion and the discussion of the board, that you could split the motion based on the misunderstanding on how the motion was phrased and the impact on a portion of the variance request that you had perhaps tended to go the other way. So I think in this instance, you would be able to discard that first motion and split these 2 requests to be able to clarify the intent of your original motion.
Okay, then I move that we discard any previous motions to approve or reject any part of this discussion based on the fact that we are learning more specifics about our process.
Board member.
Mr. Chair, point of order. This is Member Harrod. I don't think the chair is supposed to make motions, but I would adopt the same motion that you just made, which is that we essentially nullify our previous votes and start from zero, and we try to step up to these votes now that we are in a more educated posture. That would be my motion.
Although I think the chair can make a motion, I'd second Travis's motional unmotion.
We have a motion and a second. Staff, could you please take vote on that?
Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. Clark,
Aye.
Bobby,
Aye.
Turner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Walensky,
Aye.
Eisner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. This is Chairman Clark. A question to the board will be then, I can see a couple different ways of slicing this up. And can we think of a more logical order of slicing and dicing of this request to try and achieve the board's overall goals? This feels like gerrymandering or something like that.
Board Member Falvey, I think that we should discuss the size first because that impacts both signs, either on the north or the south, and then determining if we're allowing one or two signs should be the last vote, in my opinion. Is that what you're asking, Chair Clark?
Mr. Chair, this is Member Harrod. I would point out to the board, and maybe I'm reading things wrong. It seemed like the split in our body earlier concerned whether we were going to have a sign on the north side of the building or not. So it seems like the threshold issue for us to figure out, it's actually the number of signs, isn't it? And it seems like that was where the hang up was.
This is Chairman Clark agreeing. Board Member Harrod, are you then proposing that we address the number of signs first or second?
I want to be, this is Member Harrod, I want to be respectful to Board Member Falvey's request, but I point out that I don't think it was the size of the sign that caused our initial split vote. It was, there were three of us that were fine with signs on both sides of the building, and there are three of us that favored a sign being on the south side only. So I thought maybe we should start with the number of signs and see where we are on that issue.
This is Board Member Shalinsky. I don't think the chair actually stated his reasons for voting no. So I certainly stated my reason, which was the number of signs, but I'm not sure that was where all of us were.
This is Board Member Falvey. Mine was concerned with the number of signs. My point of addressing the size is, again, I don't think that's the issue, but I'm happy to discuss number of signs first also.
This is Chairman Clark answering Board Member Shalinsky's question. My reasons for voting no on the initial one would be there's probably some purist bias in the kind of this equal application of code across the board that we're called to stand on in other areas. I unfortunately don't have the experiences of some of the board members where the symbol means something, and I believe that there's any value in that any sort of corporation might say that, hey, our logo means something to our employees and something that we're trying to instill Or as we discussed, that may not be solvable by putting, the board members Gardner discussion of a statue or artwork or something inside the 2 glass pavilions that are on both the north and south side of the building. I feel like those could achieve those same purposes, and therefore, as a sign code decision, I don't see the need for a variance here.
So, Chairman, this is Member Herod. Is it fair or accurate to say that when you boil it down, it came down to number of signs? Just the sign on the south side is fine, but the sign on the north side tended to run contrary to what you believe would be appropriate under our code?
Yeah, this is Chairman Clark, and we've talked about this in regards to the community hospital out on the west side of town, as well as the Riverfront Mall downtown. Even in the Riverfront Mall, I'd say some differentiation there that jumps out at me is we're trying to identify one large building in 5 blocks of large buildings. I would consider the city hall as part of downtown, and for that, having signs that kind of call that out as a community building seem of value. This one, based on what it is tucked away back in what feels like a residential neighborhood, and so it will be the largest building when you in that neighborhood, with the exception of the Walmart to the south. And so for wayfinding and citing, calling identity to it, just say that the big building over there that's not a Walmart.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is Member Herod. What I would propose then, unless somebody tells me not to, so I'm telegraphing what I'm about to do so people can tell me, no, don't do that, is I would make a motion. I'm not making it yet. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do. I would make a motion that we take up the number, we break the staff request in half. We take up the issue of number of signs first. We find out where the board is on that issue. And then once we have disposed of that issue one way or another, then I think we could move on to, it sounds like we would then need to deal with the size of, whether it be 1 or 2 signs.
This is Chairman Clark, and I think that sounds like a great idea. So just by maybe show of fingers on our video cameras, could we just say where we're laying as far as how many signs we're feeling like should be present on this structure? Is that your objective, Board Member Herod?
Yeah, we could do that, and we could either do it by an informal poll right now, or we could just have the vote. We honestly probably should have the vote so that we can dispose of the issue and figure out, are we going to have 1 or 2 signs on this building, and then we move on and figure out how big that sign is going to be, or how big are we going to allow it to be if we're going to grant that variance.
I think this is Chairman Clark. My only concern at this point in time is that if it results in a tie again, the motion will be denied.
Right.
Because we're now that smart.
Well,
We are denied to have 2 signs.
This is Shalinski. If the motion is to have 2 signs and it's a 3-3 tie, then I believe that it would be denied, and that would result in 1 sign. If the motion was made to have 1 sign and there was a 3-3 tie, I think we would be in no man's land. So I would suggest that the motion be for 2.
And, okay. Or if it's made for 1, it's conditioned on which one?
So yes, you can condition, this is staff liaison, Catherine Week, you can condition an approval. Or you can vote to deny, vote to approve just straight up, or vote with approval with conditions. So I would recommend you craft your vote or your motion to be what the specific variance request was, which was for more than one sign. That would be the way you would craft your motion.
So this is Member Herod. Mr. Chair, I would make this motion, and I make this having listened to what Commissioner Shalinski suggested. I believe he's right. I would make the motion to approve a variance allowing number of signs, in this case 2 signs, on the building at 5100 Overland Drive. And if anybody thinks that's crazy, don't second it.
Yeah, we're not seconding it yet.
Question. So I'm sorry, one more time. So what makes it, if it's still tied and it fails, what makes it one sign that's approved?
Because that's the original, the one sign is approved. It's the second sign on the north side that's not, that needs the variance.
Okay, all right. And
so
that's understood, right, Barry?
Are you talking
yes,
to
that's
me?
correct.
Oh.
And I was going to make a very well thought building code manager. I was going to add to the point that the sign code will limit them on the placement of the first sign. It will have to face the public way. So I'm not sure that the condition of it has to be on the south side is necessary. If you want to make that condition, that could make it more clear. But I think the sign code, if that motion fails, the sign code would still allow one sign in compliance with the code.
This is Chairman Clark asking staff if Board Members Herod motion is sufficient for your requirements.
And
directed to Staff Member Week.
Chairman, Board Member Gardner, Melinda's trying to get your attention.
I would, just to answer your question quickly, I would ask Board Member Harry just to clarify if his intent is to have multiple signs addressed or specific to elevation as a condition, which side it's on.
This is Board Member Herod. My motion was not conditioned upon what side of the building the signs are on. I simply favor allowing the applicant to have more signs than the code would allow.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then I think you addressed
this. Yeah, this is Chairman Clark acknowledging Melinda one more time.
Thank you. Melinda Harger, MSO. One other clarification. It was something that was mentioned at the beginning, but before you vote, I just wanted to mention it again. This was zone GPI, so the director had the purview to decide which zoning to apply to this for the signage code. And that's when they applied the CO, commercial office. All the other commercial zoning does allow, in this case, would allow more than one sign. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that as well. It's because it's the most restrictive that we had to come for the variance. So I just wanted to clarify.
This is Chairman Clark asking a question. If he had the choice to choose, why did he choose the most restrictive and force us to have this conversation?
Melinda Harger, MSO. I also was curious about that. I understand that the decision was made and then it was considered that maybe that wasn't the right decision, but the way it's written, it could not be redetermined at that time. So there was CO on one side. There is, of course, the Walmart to the south, and there is some multifamily as well as open space to the north and GPI with the school to the east. But my understanding is the way it was written, talking with the director, is that he based it just on that before looking at the sign application itself and understanding how we were presenting it in the application. And I guess that's all I can say is my experience there.
So Board Member Gardner, so we should have considered this under the commercial rules, which allows signs on both sides?
No, this is Chairman Clark. We are not allowed to do that at this point in time. All right, this is Chairman Clark. We have a motion from Board Member Harrod. Do we have a second?
Never felt more uncomfortable in my life seconding a motion, but I will second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you take vote on that? And maybe just for the sake of over communicating right now, could you state the motion before asking for votes?
Catherine Weeks, staff liaison. So currently I have a motion to approve multiple signs, variance request for multiple signs in the CO district for this property location. Is that correct?
That is the motion as I intended it. Yes, thank you. This is Board Member Harrod.
Okay, so Clark,
No.
Falvey,
No.
Gardner,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Shalinski,
No.
Weisner.
Yes.
Okay, so it is a tie vote. So the motion, or it is a denial.
Okay. This is Chairman Clark. Moving along then, we are faced then with the remaining variance, which is in regards to size. Looking at the application here, I believe the request is for 201 feet when the code calls for 32 square feet.
Board Member
Board Member
Gardner,
Fowl.
move that we approve the larger sign.
This is Board Member Harrod. I would second that.
Okay, we have this is Chairman Clark asking for a clarification to Board Member Gardner. Are you approving the total combined request, or because I believe the total combined request encompasses 2 signs and not just the
Well, Board Member Gardner, after the failure of the previous motion, it means it goes to a single sign in the front. And therefore, I'm moving that we allowed a larger size for the single sign in the front. So you wouldn't be combining both signs because they don't count anymore. It would just be reference the front sign. And if it's too small or if it's too large, I'm moving that we allow the larger front sign.
maybe for the, I guess we have a motion and a second. We should proceed that. We have a motion to allow, I guess, Major General, could you specify the proposed size?
In the staff recommendation, they just talked about the larger size. Hang on a second.
$79.
Page 7. Is that what you said?
No, 79, I believe, is the
Sorry,
one in the back.
201 is the south wall.
Okay. I just want to confirm that with Melinda then, because I don't want to make a motion and it not be correct. Or whoever that design person was that was with her. I'm not finding it in the thing that quickly. What page did you say it was, Eric?
Page 4 of the PDF.
Yeah, it's page 94 of the total packet, but page 4, it's a box, it's a table. Page 4 of 15 in the staff report.
You could also propose the motion to be that the single sign and facing the right of way as proposed in the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I move that we grant a variance for the size of the sign on the south side as outlined in the report and the request.
This is Member Harrod. I second that motion.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you take vote on that?
Staff Member Catherine Week. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Aye.
Harrod,
Aye.
Polinsky,
Aye.
Weisner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. Thank you, Melinda and Catherine, for your time and for your patience as we work through that. I actually lost my tab here. Give me just a second. I think, is there any other communication to come before the board this evening?
No.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to wrap up this evening's Board of Sign Code Appeals.
So moved. Board Member Gardner moved to adjourn. And do we have ones for next month, or is that afterwards?
Yes, Staff Member Catherine Week, we do have items for next month's Board of Zoning Committees. I don't believe we have a sign variance though.
This is Board Member Weisner. I second the motion.
All right, this is Chairman Clark. We have a motion and a second. Staff, would you please take a vote on that?
Sure. Staff Liaison Catherine Week. Clark,
Aye.
Falvey,
Aye.
Gardner,
Oh,
Harrod,
Aye.
Shalinski,
Aye.
Weisner.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Catherine, I have a question. I was looking online on the board member terms. Is it accurate? Because it says we only have 5 board members right now.
Actually, we have 6 board members, I believe. I can have Bobby double check that tomorrow and make sure the dates are correct. But as
it says Kim and Bethany are expired, but I doubt that's accurate, or at least I doubt for Bethany that's accurate. So
I think Bethany had stated she was wanting to be reinstated, so that was the last meeting.
Inquired about that.
Yeah, and I forwarded that along. So as far as I'm aware, currently we only have 1 vacancy.
okay. Well, it's showing as you have 2 on the website. Just I know it's also the first day after the terms expire, so it might just be a.
I will make sure that is updated tomorrow.
A follow-up to that, that's a rule of order. I feel like I've been the chair for about a year. Is that right?
I believe that comes up in October. So this meeting was not on the agenda, so we'll be doing that at the next meeting.
Okay. happily relinquish control without any, I will not fight it.
Well, only if the election is legitimate and.
Nope. There will be a smooth transfer of power, regardless.
You shouldn't guarantee
No,
that.
no mail-in votes.
I'll mail mine in.
Yeah, I'm gonna mail mine the day of the election.
We've been on Zoom too long.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
No.